Well, good morning. Thank you for your welcome. It's always great to come to Wallsend and Macquarie College campus and just be a part of the great things that I see happening here. I love Macquarie College, I love the church, and I drive by it every day and often get caught in peak hour traffic at the stoplights there. And I want you to know that every morning when I get stuck in the peak hour traffic, I don't curse the school, I don't curse the parents who are trying to push by on the inside to get into that left-hand lane to turn. I actually pause and I say a prayer. I pray for the staff, I pray for the teachers, I pray for the chaplains, I pray for all that's happening on this campus today. And so please know that I pray for you. And as you as parents drive in and as you as staff drive in, make sure you do the same. Pause and pray for all that will happen each day on this campus, because each and every person is making a difference. Today I would like to encourage you to be the mentor, to be maybe a moment in a student's life that changes their trajectory. This week, our news, and the last 2 weeks, our news stories have been full of grieving for Kobe Bryant, the basketball hero. I didn't really follow him that well. I'm not a basketball fan, but he's known as a powerful basketball figure, and I think 5 titles his team won, if I remember rightly. Correct? I am correct. Good. I'm an AFL man, so I'm not really into basketball, but I did follow him from a distance because as I learnt about his life story, I realised that he wasn't just making a difference on the basketball field. And I began to wonder why social media lit up when Kobe Bryant passed away. And the reason, I think, is not so much because of his basketball skills, but because he made a difference elsewhere in his life. He was the mentor. He started a program of stopping children from retiring from sport at the average age of 11. He believed in the power of a coach, not just for playing the game, but for the life skills that a coach passes forward. He also worked with a group called Why We Rise, a campaign from the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health on the importance of being open about mental health and reducing the stigma of anxiety, depression, and other issues. But he also said the power of mentoring is huge. Just like the other night, I was travelling late at night up the freeway home, and there was a podcast. It was from one of his former managers, and he was saying that Kobe Bryant would listen to music, would listen to read, and would want to connect with the person he just listened to. So time off at midnight, he would ring a performer who was trying to break into the music industry, and he would just ring them and say, "I've just listened to your song. It inspired me, and you are making a difference, and keep at it." Made a difference in the life of one. And what he says is, I'll just find it here. He said, "I think we tend to overlook the significance coaches and mentors have on children, their emotional development, their ability to imagine, dream, and hope," Bryant said. He said, for younger kids, he started a podcast called The Punis. He said, "It's not just fun. As they get older, we hope they'll start to understand the meaning and messages, and that the show will teach them things like perseverance, commitment, hard work, compassion, empathy. Those are the things that these children need to understand as they embrace life. Kobe Bryant, not just a star, but someone who was determined to make a difference to all those that came into his sphere of influence. And that's the same as us. Research says if we can put one person into the life of our children, besides their parents, someone who speaks into their life, who knows their name, who calls them by name, affirms them, maybe identifies something happening in their life, that child is 29% more likely to embrace the faith, the Christian faith. Now, I'll take that as a dad. I'll take that as a children's ministries worker. I can find that one person to be in my children's lives, and I've done that. But the same research says by Lifeway, if we can put 5 mentors, 5 people in the lives of our children, those children are 49% more likely to embrace the faith. Now, I can do that. It's easy to do to find those 5. That's who are the big 5 in your life? When you think back and think of your story, who are the big 5 in your life? I'm sure you can name them, and probably more than that. I'm here as a pastor. I'm here as a children's pastor, a balloon twisting children's pastor, because of the people who were placed in my web of life, who were the mentors that spoke to me. And it starts for me right back at preschool when Miss French, who somewhere in that year became Mrs. Malika, was my grade prep 1 and 2 teacher. Yes, she taught me at Kurt. That dates me. And we used to learn with rods, if you know what they are. There's another name for them, but we call them rods, and the little one, and the bigger one, and the bigger one, and the bigger one. We'll build towers with those, all sorts of things, but they taught us units. Yes, and we learnt how to write, we learnt how to spell, all those things, but I was in love with Miss French. In fact, I'm sure I told my parents numerous times that I wanted to marry her as a 5-year-old. But you see, she didn't just teach me the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. She showed me Jesus in the way she treated me in the good times and the not so good times when I was a little upstart. The way she talked to me, the stories she told me, the novels she read to me. I still remember Little House on the Prairie, which she read to us as kids. All those things put foundations in my life. She showed me values by who she was in the classroom and what she did. And I could tell you about Adrian Smith, my grade 3 teacher. Again, I can't remember what he taught me in grade 3, but I remember who he was and what he did. And what about my chaplain, Rob Robe? He was Mildura Adventist High School chaplain, and again, he probably did some great chapels. He probably told some great stories. I don't remember them. I'm sorry if he's around listening or watching. I don't. But Rob Robe played cricket with the boys on the oval at recess and lunchtime, and soccer and footy. And when I saw how Jesus worked for him, I thought it might work for me too. And what about Val? Val, the school cleaner. Every day she'll come in and would empty the bins and vacuum and dust and polish. But let me tell you, for me, I used to be waiting for the bus or for Dad to come pick us up. There was always a smile. There was always an encouraging word. There was always something she would say to me, Daron, born in the middle of a big family. And that made a difference to me. I could tell you about the school maintenance man, Les. I could tell you about a whole web in my school that showed me Jesus. And I want to tell you, teacher, I want to tell you, admin, I want to tell you, principal, chaplain, preschool leader, whatever you do on this campus is important. It's a job, yes. But I want to tell you further that each one of us, with a smile, with a word, with a look, with what we do, are impacting for the future. And when the children in this school, in this church today look back, you will be an important part of their story that they will tell. And my challenge to you is, what story are you telling? Wes Stafford, who wrote the book Just a Minute, who wrote the book Too Small to Ignore, used to be president of Compassion International. I've had the privilege to sit at his feet and listen to him. He says, if God places a child in your midst, it is a divine appointment. It is a divine moment. And he challenged us to seize that moment. He wrote the book Just a Minute, and he says there that just 1 minute in a child's life can set their whole life trajectory. Just 1 moment. Just 1 minute. He says here, I'm trying to find the quote, for good or ill, individual moments in a young person's life can make all the difference in their future. It may be something said or done by an adult who hardly thinks about it. A hug, a compliment, an intriguing question, a sincere applause. But in that moment, the child discovers who they are, what is important to them, why they matter, and sometimes even what their destiny will be. Most of us want to help encourage and build into this next generation. Most of us see the need all around us, but we just have no idea where to begin. It starts with a moment. It starts with a word. It starts with a smile. It starts with you can do it. It starts with having that friendship just to encourage them along the way. Remind me of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 12 and 13, or 11 and 12 actually, where it talks about Hebrews 11 talks about the faith chapter, and it tells the story of all the faithful heroes of faith, if you like, mentors who have influenced the story of God's great interaction with mankind. And so it tells this story in Hebrews chapter 11, talks about Moses and Abraham and Jacob, and it goes right through the stories. Then it says in chapter 12, therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lie awake aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is now set down at the right hand of the throne of God. It says, since we are surrounded by the cloud of witnesses, the people who have influenced us. As I said, think about the people in your cloud of witnesses. But here's the crunch. Do our children have those same cloud of witnesses in their lives? Research is saying that, I'm sure it's not here, but that many children today can't even name one mentor besides their parents. Can't even name one mentor. So often the world is closing in around them. When I was growing up as a 5-year-old, I know it's dangerous today, it probably was dangerous then to some extent, but as a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, I had friends up and down my street. I could go next door to Mrs. Collis, who would always give me a hot chocolate and some fruit cake, chocolate brownie cake it was called back then. And up the road was Stan. He was a junk collector. He collected all sorts of bits of junk. So I would spend half my morning tinkering there, and I'd drag home a headlight of a car or a car winder or something, because I wanted to be a famous inventor. I wanted to invent something, so I used to collect all this junk. I'm sure Mum cursed Stan up the road, but I would drag it home and muck around with it, trying to invent something. And then across the road was Ernie and his friend. And Ernie's friend, well, they had ducks and chooks. So I would go and spend time. They often had ducks hatching by the fire, and I could sit and watch them hatch and play with the ducks in their yard. So I wandered across there in the early afternoon and spend the afternoon there. And I had people all up and down the road that I could call in, and 4-year-old, 5-year-old Daron, and spend time with my friends, my adult friends. And they made a difference in my life. I don't even know if they were Christian. It didn't matter. They were friends, and they made a difference. Back then, you had to sit with a family, your family, to watch the Flying Doctors. That dates me. Or A Country Practice. And you had to wait a whole week for the next episode. And I remember yelling as you raced to the bathroom or to get a drink, "It's on, it's on!" And you all race back to the TV to watch the next bit. Now you can sit in your room and you can junk out on every single episode in a matter of a weekend. Our children are closed off with their devices often and able to connect through those, which actually gives them, according to research, a false placebo connection in their brain that makes them think they're connected and that they're in the community, but not really. A placebo effect. So here's the challenge. Who are the people in your children's sphere of influence? Now, listen, the research is telling us it doesn't have to be some sort of organised mentoring program. It's the ad hoc mentoring that makes a difference. the divine appointments, the chance meetings as we go through our school day, that makes a difference. So teachers, chaplains, staff, older students, who are the people that you can speak into? Just a moment, just a minute can set a whole life trajectory. A couple of days ago, I had a bit of a stressful week, and for me, de-stress is either two things. Play with the chooks. I don't eat Toblerone anymore. I'm on a lose weight diet, so Toblerone's had to go. So my other de-stress is to go to a bookstore and just browse and maybe even buy a book. I love reading. I try and read every day. And this is currently on our bookstores as a bestseller. It's called Dear Parents, written by a teacher. And it sort of goes through a year of her school days, and it's interesting to read. You laugh, you cry, you get angry, you disagree, you agree through this, but it challenges you to think about the mentoring community and what we are doing with our children. And there's one little section I was reading just yesterday that really spoke to me. She's right about halfway through the year. What happens in the school life is nap plan, and the groans there from parents and from teachers and staff and principals and all those nap plan. She says it's each day, chapter she writes starts with, this is actually week 3. That was early maybe. Is it early, nap plan? I don't know. Week 3, Friday. And she letter starts always, Dear parents and caregivers, we survived nap plan. I'm so grateful we didn't experience any online delays or glitches. Our testing schedule ran its course, and we got the whole thing over and done with in the designated time. Our kids got through it remarkably well, and I was proud of every single one of them. Nanny Maud insisted that we have a little party to celebrate yesterday afternoon. She brought in a watermelon she had carved into the shape of a basket, and it was filled with all kinds of delicious fruit salad. The kids scooped individual serves in little bowls, and we sat around the playground together, enjoying the juicy, colourful goodness. Lots of kids talked about how happy they felt now the tests were over. You don't think you're worried about it? Coleman said thoughtfully, but then when it's over, you're so relieved, which means you must have been worrying about it. He was sitting on top of the monkey bars with 3 of his mates, their feet dangling over my head, legs swinging in synchronicity. Coleman's friends agreed with him, and so did other kids who had installed themselves on the slippery dip. So she got on to talk about this, and then she says, some kids don't get it because they're just not ready to get it. Physically, cognitively, emotionally, some kids are just not ready yet. They need more time. Just because a group of kids are all 10 years old doesn't mean they're all capable of the same things. They're not standard model 10-year-olds rolling off a production line. That's why this idea of a standardised test being used as a high-stakes measure of a student's success and a school's success is absurd. The students are considered standard simply because of their coincidental default position of being enrolled in year 3, 5, 7 or 9. But that doesn't mean they've all experienced the same life or developed in the same way or learned the same things. It's a foregone conclusion that not all kids are ready for the content the test will cover. And, she says, are we testing for the right content? The right things a child should know? are the things we measure really measures at all? Since we all don't experience life in the same way, we don't in turn all experience learning in the same way. There are many other influences that impact students' learning, things like number of books in a student's home, being read to as a child, if their father reads, the mother's level of education, complications during birth, early experiences of trauma, quality of diet, quality of sleep, amount of screen time, number of words spoken in the home, medications, development, and the list goes on. So many things impact where a child sits in terms of academic performance. And no matter how dedicated I am as a teacher, no matter how many targeted lessons I deliver, no matter how many resources I access, no matter how creatively I deliver the lesson, if I'm teaching a child who's had a rough time, that rarely eats veggies, that averages 6 hours of sleep per night, and has already developed an addiction to Minecraft, well then, it's like I'm pushing uphill. Make no mistake here, parents. I'm not saying these kids from challenging backgrounds can't go on to achieve great academic success. It is my fundamental belief that every child can learn, that every child is capable of a great many extraordinary things. I've seen kids rise up from incredibly impoverished backgrounds, but they didn't get there because their learning was constantly quantified, weighed, tested, and measured. They got there mostly because of their courage and the mentors, including us as teachers, who cared for, inspired, and encouraged them. We can't make a difference in the background of a child to some extent. We can't make a difference in what has happened in their life or what will happen in their life, but we can be that divine moment in time. We can be that moment that speaks into a child's life. Despite NAPLAN, despite all the tests and all the reports and all the things we have to do, the lesson plans and the paperwork and paperwork and paperwork. As we stand up in our classroom, as we clean that floor, as we mow that lawn, as we go to the uniform shop, as we volunteer in the tuck shop, as we listen to the kids read, as we volunteer and are involved in these children's lives, as parents, as church members, as staff members, we can know it is that moment when that child is before you that is the most important, when you are setting them on a life trajectory that, who knows, will change the world. And it starts with you and with one child who is placed in your midst. And just a minute, just a moment can be that difference. You know, I was born in the middle of a big family. I was born deaf. I was born left-handed. I still can't open cans. I get out the angle grinder in the end because it's just so hard. But and I remember sitting on the banks of the Murray River in Mildura as a 7-year-old saying, I'm not much, but God, here I am. Use me. Use me. And I'm here not because of the Bible studies, not because of the prophecy seminars or any of those sorts of things, much as good as they are. I'm here because of a church, a home, and a school, and the people in those 3 villages who combined and released me and empowered me and pointed my nose to Avondale College and beyond. Here I am. Let's not just be a production line. Let's be world changers. Let's be mentors. Let's be life changers this year. And that starts with you. That starts with me.